Hi, everybody. This is going to be part 5 of our Being, Listening, and Speaking Dynamics course. There are many parts to it. I'm going to try to make the parts small. For a long time from now to a lot through a lot of these videos, we're going to be talking about your listening skills. So your listening skills include uh, where you listen well. Let's look at some of the places a person might do listening. You're listening at work. You're listening when you're doing sports. Let's say you run by yourself around the track. You're still listening for any noise that's unusual, or you might be just enjoying listening to the silence. You listen when you're around your friends. You listen when you're out socially. You listen at church. You listen to your husband or spouse, husband or wife, your spouse. You listen to each of your children individually. You listen when you go out to do the groceries. You're always listening. So some of your listening is very good, and some of your listening is challenged. We're going to look and see what for you. Just a minute. I live in as I mentioned in one of the other ones, I live in a group home, and so people need to go by. The listening for you is some of the listening you do very well, and some of the listening you don't do as well. And you're in this class because you want help with your listening and you want help with your speaking. So look and see where in your life your listening is the best. Is it with your husband? Is it at church? Is it with your boss at work? Is it with your coworkers at work? Is it with one of your children? Is it when you're out doing errands? When is the best? That's very important for us to identify. Later, we're going to look at where you're challenged. But for right now, for several videos, we want to focus on what is it that what thing is it you do where you listen very, very well? And we're going to get very specific. We're going to break it down, and then we're going to break it down again. And then we're going to break it down again. And we're going to break it down again until we get to one specific, exact moment within inside a moment where your listening was the very, very best. I have an example that I like to give, which is a woman goes in for a job interview, or a man, either one, could be either one. And the person who's getting interviewed, they get through most of the interview. The person being interviewed says, "I am not going to accept this job unless you remodel my office." So what did they say? And we're going to write down when we get to this amount of specificity, we're going to write on the whiteboard in a class what that person said exactly. So I'm not going to take this job unless you remodel my office. I'm not going to take this job unless you remodel my office. Now, we've worked with this person for a while in class, in a seminar. I've taught this as a seminar 49 times, so I imagine myself in a seminar with other people when I do this. I'm not going to take this job until, excuse me, I'm burping. I'm not going to take this job until you remodel my office. Now, the interviewer can say a lot of things. They can say, well, then we don't want you, or let me get back to you on that, which is the most famous thing they always say. But this particular interviewer says, okay, right? Now, what's happening in this specific example, this is a false example. The person who says, I'm not going to take this job unless you remodel my office. Once they say that sentence, They're listening very intently to see what the interviewer will say. And it turns out that's one of their most well done listening moments. They're really, really listening. The interviewer says, okay, so that's a big relief. So that is the moment. Let me give you another example. Let's say, and this is something from my life, I did this. I took my fiance. No, she wasn't my fiance yet. She was my lady friend. We'd been dating over a year. I took her to a very fancy restaurant. Years later, she told me that she had told her kids from another marriage that I was probably going to ask her to marry me. So I took her to this very fancy restaurant. She was listening for that moment when I would say, will you marry me? I never said it. I got scared and didn't say it. Someone's going to be coming through here in a minute. So let me figure that out. Coming through there, young man. All right, come on through. Let me go behind me. There you go. All right, thank you very much. The reality of my situation is I live in a group home with lots of people going by me. So anyway, this woman who was my lady friend and whom I later married, was waiting for me to say, will you marry me? And I didn't say it. So she's listening intently for these words, and they don't come. So what do we do in that situation? So we're going to look at situations like that. And when you have questions, please feel free to email me. My email, think of my name and my what I feel like I do is Marc Isaac Potter Communications. Now, my company is just called Marc Isaac Potter because it's a sole proprietorship. I'm going to cash checks that I get in my own personal account, so I don't want other words on there, so they challenge it. So it's called Marc Isaac Potter, which is my name. And my email is mipc441 at gmail. mipc441 at gmail. Okay, so that's that. So now I'm going to turn this off and we're going to go to the next part. We're going to be in this listening thing for a long time. So just get used to it. And you might write things down. If you have the book, you can write things down in the book. If you don't have the book, just get a notebook and write it down.